Anytime. Anytime you're ready, Richard.
Okay, I just got a message that the recording is in progress. Okay. Come together, heart and soul, as we love together, young and old, we will sing together, together in one song. Come together from different worlds, we are drawn together. In our own way, we will pray together. Together we are strong. I see God in you. You see God in me. One path, one vision, one family. Come together, dreams and hands we will join together to build a place where we can grow together. Together we are home. Together we are home. Together we are home. Come together.
Thank you, Richard. I kind of like real time.
Me too.
I'm a big fan. Well, welcome to One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living on this fabulous Sunday morning. Our practitioner of the day is Lisa Lazaro, and I'm going to turn it over to her for our opening prayer. And there you go, Lisa.
Thank you. Okay, if we take a nice deep breath, then we can join together in a consciousness of oneness with each other and with all that there is. For there is only one God, one presence, and one power that is in and through all that exists. It's everywhere present, and we can use it because we are each individualized expression of this one. And so today, I know that we are all blessed by Reverend Michelle's service and talk with us in relationship to those who have come before, to remind us of the mentors and teachers that often we forget are so crucial to our ongoing learning and evolving consciousness and evolving wisdom of the truth. And so I know that we are blessed by this service and by the presence of one another. And so I release my word into the law, and we can release it together by saying, and so it is. This is the quote of the day. That which was so revolutionary in the philosophy of Quinby was his belief that all disease is a result of the misuse of the mind principle, that disease is not separate from the mind, but is mind in form. And since it is mind in form, mind can change it through thought, or as we say, through the law of mind in action. He drew no line between disease as a condition and the thought that produced the condition, because the thought and the thing are one and the same. And I know that Quinby was Ernest acknowledged Quinby as the core of his belief and his work. And he acknowledged people. And I think that's one of the things we're called to do today by virtue of the concept that today's sermon is to say his name. And so I'm thinking that we could just spend a minute or so, just contemplating in our own life the names that we could say in relationship to those who have been profound influences on our thinking and way of life. And so we can come back together and together perhaps say the affirmation, sorry. With unshakable confidence, I participate fully and freely in the adventure of life. I am an ambassador of revolutionary love. I release my old story and embrace a new inspired vision of my life. The great I am within me guides and supports me. I am one with the love and the law of infinite spirit. And so it is. And I would like to share one last thing because it kind of came to me this morning in terms of the varieties of ways of worshiping God, that underneath all of it is the faith and the belief. And I kept thinking of that anthem that is faith of our fathers, living still in spite of dungeon, fire, and sword. And I don't remember all the rest of the words, but it was like it embodied for me the sense that there is this long tradition of faith that we are the recipients of. And I'm so grateful for the fact that we have been able to come as far as we have in expressing faith. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. So Richard, do you want to introduce your song this morning?
Yes, I would love that. Where am I? Okay. Anyway, standing on the shoulders, the whole idea of those that went before. It's a fascinating topic. And it got me thinking about what that means to me. And I, as a member of a nation, as a member of the world community, we owe so much to the great ones throughout history. Socrates, Mahatma Gandhi, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt, Susan B. Anthony, Martin Luther King. Then I think about the great scientific advancements, Galileo, Newton, Einstein, tech, Jobs, Steve Jobs, the dependency that we have on all these technological improvements. Then for me, there's music, there's Bach, there's Beethoven, Brahms, there's Duke Ellington, there's Louis Armstrong. And in particular, Louis Armstrong, such a universal spirit, so loved, so down to earth and accessible. A friend of mine who passed away back in the 90s was able to hang out with Louis after a gig. And they spent the whole evening, whole morning, early morning, just talking about stuff. They did a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And he kept pictures of Louis in his house until he passed away. Anyway, Louis did his part in connecting us all a little bit closer together. Now, here's a big hit that he had called Wonderful World in 1967. I hope you enjoy. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're only saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're only saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, yes. Thank you, Louis.
That was great, Richard. Thank you. I really love the imitation, or what do you call it? Interpretation of Louis at the end there.
Spirit of Louis, yes.
There you go. That's it. The spirit of Louis. Thank you so much. Oh, that was great. Well, good morning again, and welcome to One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living. And this is the fourth Sunday in May. And just in case you hadn't heard, today after the service, we're having our annual general meeting. So I hope that you plan to stay and see what's happening behind the scenes at our spiritual center, your spiritual center. And as I'm sure you know by now, this month's theme is Holy, Holy Uprising. And we continue with this theme this morning by focusing on the people that came before us and inspired and contributed to the New Thought movement, and by extension, the science of mind philosophy that we all teach and live and practice. And so I'd like to pay tribute to the people who brought us to this moment in time where we are now, so that we can personally continue to grow and expand and evolve as a movement for conscious transformation, which is what we are, for a transformation for our individual selves and for everyone, for the world. So this morning's talk is, as I've heard a few people say already, say their names, which is in reference to the people that came before us and paved the way for us. And in our turn, we will pave the way for the people that come after us. And as we look back over the course of human history, it's pretty easy to see the events that have occurred and what has been accomplished by individuals and cultures and nations, throughout all of human history. We can see, especially since everything started getting written down, we can see what happened before us. But it's difficult for us to actually put ourselves in the shoes of those people who came before us, because we didn't live in their time. It was a completely different time. It's difficult to put ourselves in the zeitgeist. I love that word. Zeitgeist means the spirit of the time, or the general trend of thought and feeling of a particular period of time. Zeitgeist, it's a great German word. When we look back at our history, the people, the events, it's easy to see how history unfolded, and it's really easy to comment and judge what happened from our current day zeitgeist, from our current cultural norms and ideas and our perspectives from 2021. But it's not always as easy to understand exactly why people did what they did without understanding the zeitgeist of their day. I know when I became a young adult, it was so easy for me to sit back and look at how my parents raised me and my 6 siblings and think of all the ways I would have done it differently. But, the norms of the world that I lived in, even in my 20s, were much different than the ones that my parents lived in, even in their early 20s when they became parents, and all of their experiences and cultural norms and the ideas of their days, and their personal history shaped their perspective and thereby their actions. And they certainly weren't the same as mine. And all those things play a part in how my parents raised us and how we show up in our world today. So I remember when I was taking a class when I was in ministerial school, it was on the New Testament. And I remember the professor told us that it was impossible for us to understand the Bible unless we could walk in the sandals of someone who lived 2,000 years ago, living in the same part of the world where Jesus lived, that we would never be able to really understand it unless we could see the world through the zeitgeist, the lens of that time, which makes total sense to me. And that's true for us today. I was thinking about it. I know my daughter, who is now 42, she reaps the benefits of the women's liberation movement from the 60s and 70s that I lived through. And all women living in the United States today enjoy the benefits and the efforts of the suffragettes who won the right for women to vote with the passage of the 19th Amendment. When was it? It was back in 1920. And because that was so many years before I was born, to some degree, I kind of take it for granted. And unless I take the time to understand what they had to go through, and it was a lot, and the zeitgeist of that time, the spirit of that time, I will never fully understand the advantages that I have because of their efforts. And in my humble opinion, I think this is important for us today because human experience doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's a collective experience. You know, we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. And while the events are important, it's the spirit of the times, the zeitgeist, in which we can truly be inspired to continue the journey of the growth and the expansion of human consciousness. That's the richness, you know, the interesting stuff of humanity. And I think the story of the development of religious traditions and religious thought helps us to understand that story of the expansion of human consciousness, and inspires us to contribute our part to the story, to continue to be curious and explore and experiment and live and teach this philosophy which we study and live in all the time. And I believe it's important for us to honor and to recognize the contribution of those who have come before us, you know, to honor their contributions to the collective growth of humanity, and to recognize the ongoing journey. And the exciting part of that is that our contributions matter. They matter a lot. And we get to be a part of this expansion of the good of the human experience by extension, when we honor and recognize and continue and are inspired by the people that have come before us. So, and that's what we're talking about today. We say their names. And the first name that I want to say is Ernest Holmes, our founder. He invited us to be open at the top. You know, he was invited, when he said that, he was inviting us to reflect on the past with an eye for what is yet to be discovered and experienced, and what we contribute, you know, because that is in an ongoing important part of the story. He knew that if we were a closed philosophy, we might become too stagnant and rigid, and we wouldn't welcome that natural expansion and growth that is inherent in life that we teach in this wonderful philosophy. It's inherent in the nature of the human journey itself. You know, we always want to keep moving and expanding and growing. And he knew that rigidity leads to that dogmatic, closed-minded state that is not receptive to the influx of new life. Being open at the top embraces our potential as these divine beings living a human life. So to say their names means to honor and recognize those who came before. You know, I know a lot of times on Mother's Day or Father's Day, I invite us to all say the names of our parents out loud as a way of honoring their lives and their contributions to our lives. And I know that on 9/11, it's become the tradition to read off the names of all of those who were lost in that event. And it's just a way of honoring them and to not forget the lessons of that day and of what they brought, you know, because we're not frozen in time. We use the wisdom of those who have come before us as this launching pad to continue this really miraculous journey of humanity. I mean, it really is a miraculous journey. We honor those who come before us as kind of a promise to continue the journey and to have the courage to move into what is possible, what is yet to be. And in keeping with that idea, I thought today we could take a look at what influences, what names are prominent in the New Thought tradition. So we started off with Ernest Holmes. I say his name with gratitude and honor and respect. And Ernest Holmes, he synthesized the science of mind philosophy from many different influences, from many different people. And so I'd like to just kind of briefly go over who those people are and what those traditions were that he synthesized this philosophy, the science of mind philosophy, for us. So the science of mind is a metaphysical philosophy that comes under the umbrella of New Thought. And I'm sure that most of you know that. And regardless of the name, New Thought, the basic principles of New Thought are anything but new. Their roots can be traced back to ancient spiritual traditions. But the name more likely comes from one of the most fundamental ideas of New Thought, which is that a new thought in conscious mind is the seed that creates a new experience in our lives. You know, I think it's fair to say that most, if not all, of the pioneers of New Thought, of the New Thought movement itself, were raised in the Christian tradition. So the principles of New Thought definitely have a Christian foundation. And also, I think it's important to note that the New Thought movement itself came in on the heels of the Transcendentalist movement. You know, and I think that's an important piece of information because it gives us a peek into the zeitgeist or the spirit of the time, the spirit of that particular period of time. The Transcendentalist movement came in around the 1820s, 1830s, and had a lot of prominent people in them, names we still say, like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, and there were women too, Margaret Fuller, Elizabeth Peabody. These are names that we can speak. And this was a really transformational time, you know, the idea of the divine not being separate and out there somewhat, but being a part of creation and celebrating that creation. That was a part of the Transcendentalist philosophy, and that was new for the time. You know, the Transcendentalists taught that humans are inherently good, but can be corrupted by society or institutions, and that personal insight, our personal experience was important, that spirituality came from the self, not just from organized religions, and that we have to, all that we have to do is to look around at the natural world to see the inherent beauty and the example of divinity immersed in everything around us. And this was the flavor of the time, a very kind of independent look at life, you know, the basic tone and the tenor of the zeitgeist, which gave birth to the New Thought movement. I mean, really, when you think about that, the richness of the Transcendentalist movement was opened the door for the idea of the New Thought movement. And I think we've really expanded on that idea over the decades. Think of how many people today think of themselves as spiritual, yet not religious. I know that I've used that description of myself as well. It's that same flavor that we're not stuck in this religious dogma, but that God is everywhere within its creation. So the next name that I'd like to say is Phineas Parkhurst Quimby. Park, as his friends called him. Quimby, who lived in the early 1800s, believed that he had rediscovered the lost healing methods of Jesus. And, you know, indeed, I think he did. And the loosely kind of organized movement that began around him became known as New Thought and gave rise to several independent organizations, many that we know. Unity Religious Science, which used to be what we called Centers for Spiritual Living, that's us, Divine Science, and there are many others. And there's a passage in the Bible, in Romans 12:2. And let me see if I can find it here. I want to get it right. And I kind of think that this is a really good expression of the foundational principle of New Thought. And it says, be ye transformed by the renewing of the mind. Be ye transformed by the renewing of mind. That's kind of the linchpin of the New Thought movement. It is through the law of mind that we transform our lives. You know, what we know that as practitioners of New Thought, we know that what we think and feel in repetitive patterns is what we create through the law of mind. And there are many, many, many pioneers of New Thought, and all of their stories are pretty fascinating. You know, if you've ever taken a roots class or read a book about the origins of the New Thought movement, there's a great book called Rebellion of Spirits, or I think that's it. I haven't read it in a while, but it gives you a full kind of overall view of the people that were involved in this wonderful New Thought movement. And Ernest Holmes, as part of the movement, founded the religious science tradition, which is now called Centers for Spiritual Living, as I said a minute ago, and we teach the philosophy of the science of mind. And like I said, Holmes synthesized his philosophy from a number of sources from both Eastern and Western spiritual traditions. You can definitely feel the sense of the Eastern traditions within our science of mind principles. Holmes believed that it was the marriage of science and religion that would lead us into a new understanding of kind of the nature of life, the nature of the divine. He believed that the ultimate goal of both religion and science was to understand the relationship between the creator and the created. And as a matter of fact, the first line of the Science of Mind text is, let me see if I can find that one so I can say it correctly. We all look forward to the day when science and religion shall walk hand in hand through the visible to the invisible. You know, and that's the meaning of metaphysics itself. It's the exploration of the connection between the visible and the invisible worlds through the creator into creation. So Quimby, the Transcendentalists, Eastern and Western religious tradition, all played a part in shaping the science of mind philosophy. But there were three major influences, three people whose names I'm going to say, that really influenced Ernest Holmes as he was putting this philosophy together. And they are Thomas Troward, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Emma Curtis Hopkins. These were the three main influences on Holmes. And, you know, and by extension, I teach and live my life by them today. Their lives have touched mine and all of ours. Their contributions still serve and inspire us today. And we're the ones who we have the opportunity to continue the expansion of this movement. So when we understand where these people were coming from and what the spirit of their time was and what inspired them, it helps us to continue to expand in this same vein of spiritual exploration and a movement towards good in the world. And so I think it's important for us to understand where they were coming from. I'm not going to talk a lot about each of these people, but I just want to kind of give a feel of how they played a part in creating the science of mind philosophy. Thomas Troward, we say his name, we speak his name, he was a British divisional judge who lived in northern India in 1869 to 1896. And he was devoted to metaphysics and esoteric studies. It was a great passion of his. And Troward taught and wrote about mental science. Let's see, I have a quote. Let me see if I can find it, page 6. I have a quote from him. Here it is. From his teaching on the creative power of thought. Thought, or purely mental action, is the only possible source from which the existing creation could ever have come into manifestation at all. So thought, or purely mental action, is the only possible source from which the existing creation could have ever come into manifestation at all. Troward taught that it was thought that inspired and created everything that we see in the natural world. Does that sound familiar at all? This is the juicy stuff that Holmes used to form his idea of the power of creative law. You know, just stop and reflect for a minute how this has impacted your life. How I use the creative law, the creative process in my life every day. And if you're anything like me, you experiment with creative law every day, all the time, through affirmations, through prayer, through being aware of what we're thinking and feeling all the time, because we know that is what is creating our experience. We are living the legacy of Thomas Troward. That is how the people that have come before us, how their legacy lives on through us and how we expand on it. So Thomas Trower, we say your name here in honor and respect and celebration, and we thank you for your contributions. So the next name I'm going to say is Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was a major contributor to the Transcendentalist movement. And he dug deeply into the idea of the creator in and through all creation, of oneness. I remember reading that Holmes once said that reading Emerson was like drinking water for him. He just sucked up like a sponge the teachings of Emerson's, and in Holmes' teaching, you could hear the voice of Emerson's passion for the divine in and through and all life. And Holmes was so taken with Emerson that he actually wrote a book called The Philosophy of Emerson. Where he does this wonderful thing. I was just looking at the book yesterday. So he does this wonderful thing where he takes some of Emerson's quotes and he responds to them. It's sort of like he's having a conversation with Emerson in the book. And I have a quote. I'm not going to share it on the screen. I'm just going to read it for you. Here's one of his responses to what Emerson said. Holmes wrote this. He said, "The mind that stimulated the act of antiquity," so what came before, "is the same mind that is stimulating our present acts." So he's talking about mind as this infinite continuum, which is why we're celebrating the legacy of the people that came before us. And he goes on, "It emerges through all. It embraces all ages, encompasses all periods, is present at all times." And here's my favorite part. He writes, "Uncreated, it creates. Unformed, it gives form. Unborn, it gives birth. Each hour of our day is an hour of its day." So you hear the oneness in that and the unity of the creator with its creative. And that was the juiciness that Holmes took from Emerson's teaching. And Emerson was enthralled with this oneness of God in and through all of its creation. And so was Holmes. And this continues to inspire us today. So I'm going to say, Ralph Waldo Emerson, we say your name here in honor and respect and celebration. Thank you for your contributions. And then the last name I'm going to say is Emma Curtis Hopkins. She deepened in Holmes a sense of the mystical. She's known as the teacher of teachers. Hopkins loved the mystery of the divine, and we can hear her voice throughout Holmes's writings. And when he was speaking, he waxed poetic at the mystery and the majesty of life. And I think a lot of that inspiration came from Emma Curtis Hopkins. And Hopkins taught about conviction. If you read her books, you can hear that she knew that it was the conviction of our beliefs, as she put it. What did she say? She said, as leaven in the midst of flour and water. So conviction is like the leaven in the midst of flour and water that makes our beliefs rise into action. And she gave Holmes the idea of the fire and the conviction in mind and in heart as we plant our seed of thought into creative law. Oh, and I think I have a quote from her too. Oh yeah, here it is. I love this. She wrote, "We call metaphysics the science of strength." Do you love that? The science of strength. Because to know metaphysics is to be strong beyond any strength you have ever dreamed of. Oh, to be strong beyond any strength you have ever dreamed of. Because we have that knowing, that intuitive, mystical knowing at the sense of what is real, at the deep, convicted level of our connection with spirit. So, Emma Curtis Hopkins, we say your name here in honor and respect and celebration. Thank you for your contribution. Oh, all of these people that came before. So, we recognize and we celebrate all these teachers by teaching about them, by speaking their names into the room, and by continuing the exploration of the divine in our own individual lives. So here's my invitation to you this week. I invite you to think about the people that have come before you, those who have had a positive influence on your life, a dramatically positive influence, who inspire you. And ask yourself, what qualities do you admire in them? And I want you to look for those qualities within yourself, because if you admire them in someone else, you know that they are in the midst of you, or you wouldn't recognize them. You know, I know they're there. And to honor their lives by expanding that quality in your life. I'm inviting you to speak their names and to exemplify those qualities that you admire by nurturing them and cultivating them and bringing them forward into the expansion of your own life. You know, those people that we know their names very well, like some of the people I've spoken to today, and those that maybe only you know, but to know that we are all part of this one life, and we are the living continuum of the expansion of their consciousness, which is the consciousness of the one, the consciousness of spirit. So let's move into prayer. Let's move into some prayer. Taking a nice deep breath in. I invite you to go into that place, that strength that Emma Curtis Hopkins spoke of, the strength of the one that is within us, the oneness that Emerson brought forward, the connecting with that law that Troward taught us about. Be in that place of infinite connection, knowing that there is only one life and we are all in it. We are the living embodiment of this legacy of wisdom that has come before us, that we are all in this infinite moment. And so I speak my word for and about each and every person that is present here on this call, and each and every person that is not, that we are so blessed to be a part of this life, this infinite, expansive, good, wonderful, blessed, wise life. And I know that we are cracked open even a little farther and expanded a little wider, moving into the full flow and the allowance of all of this to come flooding through us into the good of our own lives and into the good of all lives, the good of all of humanity. And as we accept this, I am moved into a deeper state of gratitude, of thanksgiving for the allness and the richness of life itself, knowing that the momentum cannot stop and will never stop, for we are an ever expanding and expanding field of good in divine consciousness expressed in our human consciousness. We are part of the whole and we are part of the one. And each of us has our own divine part to play in this magnificent whole. So for this, I just say thank you. I know it is so. And I release these words into the capable hands of that law of mind that Troward taught us about. And I just relax in that, knowing all is well and all is good. And together we say, and so it is. Oh, that was fun. I like talking about people that came before and how it expands our lives. So this is our time of conscious giving, and which is also a spiritual practice. And I am going to share the affirmation. If I can get it up here on the screen, I'm going to have to move along here. I'm going to tell you about all the ways in which, if you are giving to One Heart, One Mind, which is a continuum of the New Thought movement, and all of these things we are consciously expanding into the world. If you are giving to us in to your center in a financial way, here's all the ways you can do that. You can go to Venmo, which I do. It's so easy. I look for Leslie Massapus. It's under her name because she's the president until maybe just a few minutes here. And you can look for her and send your donation directly. You can do it on Untitled, or you can send a snail mail check to Jim Massapus, who's our assistant treasurer, and he deposits those right into our bank account. So I invite you to, in the spirit of sacred giving, to say the affirmation with me. Imagine that you're holding your gift in your hand, in your heart. And from that place of absolute love, knowing that this gift comes back to you multiplied, I invite you to say the affirmation. I recognize that my gift is an instrument of the energy and love of God. As it flows from me, it uplifts and advances all life, including mine. I give and receive joyously. I am so grateful, and so it is. So, Leslie, do you have some, I'm going to stop this here. Do you have some announcements for us? And then we'll have our prayer and song.
Monday at 6:30 is our metaphysical journey into the 12-step program that we have. And in that program, we take a look at the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and how those steps parallel what we practice in the science of mind. And then on Monday evenings at 6:30, or Tuesday evenings, I'm sorry, at 6:30.
Actually, it's 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock is our spiritual inoculation, and that's being facilitated by Reverend Michelle, and it's going to be on the affirmative prayer group. And then Wednesdays at 6 o'clock is our book discussion with Maureen Bishop on Dennis Merritt Jones' book, The Art of Uncertainty.
Well, we actually finished that up last week. Go ahead.
No, we're going to just do a review of
Okay, great, good.
Okay. The review of the book is going to take place on Wednesday with Maureen Bishop. And even with the review, you do not have to have read the book to participate in the class. Okay. Are there any other announcements?
Well, none other than to say that we are going to move right into our annual general meeting right after we have our song and what have you. So I hope that you stick around. We won't belabor anything. We know you've been online already for almost an hour, so we don't want to, well, 45 minutes at least. Yeah. So we're just going to kind of hit the highlights, but yeah, that's about it.
Okay. And Relaine is our practitioner that's giving our benediction today.
All right, so let's just all take a collective breath of gratitude and just feel the energy of all those that are with us that have come before us. And just know that there's just this tremendous goodness and greatness that we are all a part of. And this is an energy for good and greater good for our lives and those of others. And this includes all sentient beings and includes our Mother Earth. And so I'm tremendously grateful for Reverend Michelle and her talk today, reminding us of saying the names of all those that have come before us, that touch our hearts and our souls and our spirits. And gratitude for Lisa and her practitioner prayer leading into the service, and Richard and his music, and all of us here today, and our energies collectively join. And those who aren't able to be with us are part of that energy, and that energy of new thought, and that goodness and that greatness. And so with love and light, I release this prayer into divine law, simply with gratitude and peace and ease and such appreciation. And so it is.
So it is.
Thank you so much, Elaine. That was beautiful. And we're going to close out by singing Blessed Always. And Richard's going to do that for us in real time. Kind of having a hybrid music.
Please join me. Blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say amen. One more time. Blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God. Say amen.
You, Richard. Oh, and I did want to mention that next Sunday's message will be delivered by Maureen Bishop. Do you have a talk title for that?
Yes, it's the CSL. It's a new story.
Oh, yay.
Has to do with our monthly affirmation, creating a new story.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so I'm so glad you're all here. I'm going to, if I can find it, I'm going to put up our agenda for the meeting today. Let's see, I want to leave that up. Talking to myself here. Here it is. So we're going to start off with, if I can get over there. Here we go. Where Leslie, you're going to give us a call to order, and I'll put up the mission statement for you.
I now call the annual general meeting of One Heart, One Mind to order. Our vision statement that appears on our website is this: One Heart, One Mind is an expanding and powerful spiritual presence of love in the world, awakening people to the divine creative power within.
Wonderful, thank you. And next up, we have Maureen Bishop is going to do our invocation for our meeting. And then we're going to have the president's report from Leslie.
Okay. I wanted to play a little song for you. I was trying to play Celebration from Kool and the Gang, and I'm obviously having a little problem. What I wanted to do was just say, this is a birthday party for One Heart, One Mind. And I know we're all so serious when we do an invocation, but I want to celebrate another day in the life of One Heart, One Mind, another year. So join me in consciousness, and let's take a deep breath, a refreshing breath, a new breath, right here, right now, and know with me that there is only one omniscient, omnipresent, omniscient power, and that power, that one life is God's life, is One Heart, One Mind's life, right here, right now, and it is expressing in, around, and through One Heart, One Mind. So I speak these words for One Heart, One Mind, and I declare this perfect creation and perfect creativity, amazing prosperity, healthy tithing, loving relationships, continued growth. And I know, and I declare the spiritual support for every person who comes in contact with One Heart, One Mind, an awakening, an evolution, teaching of the science mind principles. And for this and so much more, I am so grateful for everyone that is a part of and has been affected by One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living. Thank you, God. So I release my word into the mind. I know it is acted upon as spoken. I know this is so, and together we say,
So
So it is. Sorry, I didn't get to play Celebration.
It has been one humdinger of a year. With the onset of COVID-19, we found ourselves thrown into a digital world. And I want to say that thankfully we were familiar with a little bit of that digital world, having had classes on Zoom and a number of the board meetings already happening on Zoom. Let me introduce your current board of trustees for One Heart, One Mind. Robert Brown is the president. The vice president of the board. Rob McGregor was your treasurer. The other members are Jean Perkle, and you usually don't see Jean's face because she's behind the branding sign that you see on your screen, running the technical part of our setup for Sunday morning. And Jim Massifus is on the board, and Reverend Michelle. I want to tell you all, we have a great asset in Jean Perkle, who joined the board this year, in the fact that she lives in the world of computers. And so I know it's been frustrating for her at times working with the rest of the board, with us quote olders that were not that familiar with the digital world. And with her expertise, it has been a great help. One of the things that we did this year was to get One Heart, One Mind set up on Amazon, so that anything that you purchase on Amazon, there can be a donation made to One Heart, One Mind, which helps with our finances. Let me tell you, that was probably a 3-month project getting that done. And at that time, we were probably somewhat of a thorn in the side of Centers for Spiritual Living headquarters, because of documentation that we needed that all of a sudden was not on some of the websites that for us to get set up with some of the vendors did not appear and had to be replaced. One of the big projects that we did was in updating the bylaws. And thanks to the help of Robert Brown on the verbiage of those, we updated the bylaws to come in line with how we currently do business and the world of technology. All of our documentation that is necessary to be saved now is on Google Docs. And all of the center members are able to see a copy of the minutes of any meeting, and we record all of our minutes. And also you're entitled to see a copy of the financial reports, and that can be received from Rob McGregor at any time. But you do have to get permission to go onto Google Docs if you are not a member of the board. I'd like to thank everybody who has served on this board, because there's been many hours and changes that have taken place for us all of a sudden to be able to have our services and classes and the book discussions that we have on Zoom. And we are very fortunate, because a lot of the centers were not set up on Zoom when that happened, nor did they have the expertise available to them with some of the members in their congregation to be able to do that. It's been a great pleasure. Lots of changes taking place and more of them yet to come.
Thanks, Leslie. Yes, it's been quite a year. We really, I mean, there's been a learning curve, but we have done a lot to upgrade the way that we do service and handle the business of One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living. And yes, Jean has been a fabulous help in doing all that. And I also want to, you know, Rob McGregor does a heck of a lot of work keeping our books together. And I just really want to thank him too. I mean, he takes this, area of our center, and he always makes it seem accessible and possible, and like we're moving forward. He always puts such a science of mind spin on doing the finances, and I so appreciate that. It's so fabulous. So I want to take a minute here to honor the two people that are going off the board who have been my rock. So Jim Massapus and Reverend Leslie Massapus are leaving our board. And when I first came to One Heart, One Mind in 2016, I remember they called me and invited me out to lunch, and were so welcoming and so supportive and so ready to help set the stage to make our center successful, and the ministry that I was bringing to be successful. And I just can't thank them enough. And they have been, Leslie told me yesterday that she started with One Heart, One Mind before it was One Heart, One Mind, when it was Reverend Harry Moses back in 1997. So they have been with the center really since then in all of its different iterations. And we did give them a little gift. I mean, for the amount of contribution and generous giving that they have done over the years, it doesn't seem like much, but we did give them a gift certificate to one of their favorite restaurants, so they'll hopefully they can go out to dinner there and really celebrate themselves. So I just want to give a sincere and heartfelt gratitude and thank you to both Reverend Leslie and Jim for their years of contribution. And I can't thank you enough. I would not have been able to do my ministry here at One Heart, One Mind without your support. And I'm infinitely grateful. I'm gonna miss you. I know you're not going anywhere, but
We're not going to, we're still here.
I'm going to turn it over to Robert Brown now, and he's going to introduce our new board members. Well, he'll let him explain.
First, let me take a point of personal privilege and extend my personal appreciation to Leslie and Jim for their longtime service on the board. Each of us who have been board members now or in the past take the job seriously. We all are dedicated to doing our best. We sometimes make mistakes. We don't get everything exactly right, but we are dedicated to doing our best, to extending our strengths and our talents to the service of One Heart, One Mind and all of its members. And part of what we're doing today is electing two members to take the place of Jim and Leslie. I'm not going to substitute for them because nobody can really substitute for them. But we move on to have new members. And the two people that have told us that they are interested in being on the board are Elaine Clark and Yvonne Carpenter. And I've known Yvonne for several years now, even from back when we were doing in-person Sunday services. I've only known Relaine on Zoom, but I know that they are both very dedicated to One Heart, One Mind. I know that they are both very spiritual-minded people, as well as practical-minded people. And I am certain that they will do a wonderful job as board members. Now, since there's nobody running in opposition, we're going to do the vote by acclamation. So everyone who's in favor of Yvonne being on the board, raise both hands. And now everyone who's in favor of Relaine being on the board, raise both hands. All right. I declare as the officer presiding over the election that they have both been voted in as members of the Board of Trustees of One Heart, One Spiritual Living to serve a 3-year term, at which time they'll be up for re-election. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Robert. And now the next person on the agenda is our fabulous treasurer, Rob McGregor. Rob, do you want me to share the proposed budget or do you have it?
I actually, we modified it a little bit
Oh,
at
okay.
the board meeting,
Right.
so you could make me a co-host, or whoever is in charge of such things could
I-
make me a co-host. That would be
Jean
good.
can do that. Jean, can you make Rob a co-host so he can share that? Thank you. All right.
That's good. Okay, good, good, good. Bear with me a second. I have to apologize to you guys because my presentation is going to be a little bit lacking today. I suffer from a horrible medical condition known as vacation brain. And last night, Morgan and I are turning out the lights at the end of the night. And then I went, oh man, I got to do a presentation. And here in Hawaii, the home service starts at 7:30 in the morning. So it's going to be lacking, but well, I guess the treasurer's report that's short should be good. Let me see if I can remember how, oh, there we go, share screen. Okay, we are going to, there it is. This, I think everybody can see our proposed budget. Is that true, people? Yes, okay, that's good. This part I've already had prepared because I presented it to the board members a few days ago. I'm just going to go through this, our 2021, even though we're in May, yet this is our budget for this year, and it's mostly based on history. I'm going to go down line item by line item. The donations at the top, the 45,500 is just what we expect because I took 12 months during our Zoom period, and that was that becomes our projected income. We do all this from history. We judge by on the board, we judge by appearances, and sorry about that, but that's what we're looking at right now, less than, and that can certainly change, but that's what we're counting on, the continued support of all of you. The expenses that we have, that starts with advertising, that number is going to drop thanks to the work of Jean Perkle, but we're stuck with obligations and through November, so we're expecting about $420. That pays for our website hosting. Like I said, Jean is going to help us lower that number ultimately. Insurance is what it is. We shopped it around. That's about the best we could do for a church type insurance policy. The Tithely and PayPal keeps going down because a lot of you keep switching to Venmo, which is free. So we really recommend that you do Venmo if that's an option for you. Minister's compensation, we have a $100,000 minister who works dirt cheap. And we know this is true because we were paying her more and it became obvious that we couldn't afford that, and she dropped her salary unilaterally. And then it turned out we couldn't pay that either, and she dropped it again. Anybody who thinks she's in it for the money, she is not. Michelle is here for you, and there's no other way to that situation. So thank you, Michelle. This past year, we were able to increase her salary by a token amount, and just to let her know that we're trying our very best for her, but still, we are blessed, so blessed to have a wonderful senior minister like Michelle. Music is below that. Richard is the same situation. Richard has an incredible talent. It just blows. I've known about him longer than I've known of One Heart, One Mind. He followed us from the New Thought Center to One Heart, One Mind, and every Sunday he blows me away. And today, this morning, was no exception. Richard, we can't afford what you're worth, but thank you for being one of us and for contributing the part of you we can't afford to pay for. Thank you, Richard. Telephone, once again, Jean went to work on this, and I think Jim Massapus too, and we've got our telephone costs reduced to less than it used to be. We're doing better there. Our tithes, you'll notice, are pretty much dead on 10% of what we bring in. And that all goes to Centers for Spiritual Living, and we got a miscellaneous category down here. So in a nutshell, our income is the 45,500, projected expenses 41,250. So we're expecting to spend about 10% of what 90% of what we brought in, leaving 10% as a buffer. So it's probably these are probably reasonable numbers. As I tell the board every board meeting, our expenses are pretty much given. They stay the same every month. It's the income that varies. What you are able to give to us is the great variable. So bless you for making One Heart, One Mind possible. Bless you for the numbers that we have to work with. Let's see, I just want to give a shout out to Jim Massapus. He has, even though he's leaving the board, he is continuing to help me. He's declared himself the assistant treasurer, and he deserves that because he helps with the deposits and keeping track of who gave what. And actually, that's a fair amount of work. So thank you, Jim, for making it possible for me to do my job. Now, looking forward, we're hoping that we can expand. We're hoping we can that if our congregants can find it possible to give even more than they are currently giving. That would mean a couple of things. One, we might be able to get our senior minister a little closer to what she's worth. We know we'd all like to do that. And also, we're all looking at the possibility, strong possibility, we're declaring it as a fact right now that we can meet perhaps once a month together in person. That involves rent, and rent is very expensive. So any additional contributions you can give would bring us closer to that goal. So that's about it. And I know there may be questions, but I'm going to leave it up to whoever's right, to Michelle or to Leslie, as to when the appropriate question and answer period might be. Thank you all.
Does anyone have any questions about the proposed budget?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I don't see anything in there for rent. Are you anticipating we get back together sometime in this next fiscal year?
We are hoping that there's no room in this budget for it, but there is altogether possible that our income will increase on those days when we're able to meet, and that is the hope. That is, well, we'll make it a declaration. That is what we're declaring, that the income will actually increase as a result of being together, and that we'll be able to attract more people.
And we still have a deal with the temple.
We do.
Okay.
We do.
Good.
We renegotiated. We don't, we just talked about this at the board meeting last week. We don't have a signed lease, but we have a verbal agreement that we will meet there the last Sunday of every month. And we spoke with Phil about, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and the temple is deciding what they're going to do. We have to follow their lead as far as meeting in person. And they, I know they're hoping to open by the High Holy Days, which is in, I believe, the beginning of September this year. So we're going to be in touch with him and figure out what's going on with our meeting in person at that time. But even when we meet in person, we're still going to live stream because we've expanded our scope of attendees to be out of geographical, the area that they could attend. So we'll still do live streaming. So we'll still do Zoom and Facebook Live, even on the days when we get together in person. So thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Well said. Anybody else have any questions for Rob? Okay, great. Well, I'm going to do the minister's report now. I made these wonderful notes and I left them on the printer, but maybe that's fortuitous because now I'll be brief. So basically, I just wanted to say that, you know, we are doing our Tuesday and our Wednesday evening spiritual practice and book groups or study groups that we do, and we'll continue to do them. If you ever have any desire for a regular class or for some book that you'd really like to take a look at, please reach out to me and give me your suggestions, because I'm always looking for stuff for us to do. And if you haven't joined on a Tuesday or Wednesday evening, please do, because we have a lot of fun. And it's only an hour. It's not a huge chunk of time, but it's just enough to really make that connection. And I'll still be doing the 12-step metaphysical journey through the 12 steps for another 5 weeks or so. So I invite you to join that as well. And you know, you don't have to either be an alcoholic or a drug addict to attend. And we're expanding our definition of addiction to be just anything that you would rather you not do. It isn't really working for your life. So I encourage you to do that. Last month we met at our board meeting and we did a visioning. And from that visioning, the theme that really rose up to the surface was the idea of expansion, which seems completely applicable. And out of that idea of expansion, that theme was really the prominent theme from the visioning, we came up with some actionable items, mostly that we began first in consciousness to expand individually in consciousness and collectively as a spiritual center. And the ways in which we can do that are to daily include one heart, one mind in your spiritual practice, for expansion in the reach that we have in the world, for what we send out as far as let's see, an intention for transformation into the expansion of good in the world, to create a world that works for everyone. So please include one heart, one mind in your daily spiritual practice. And also share, you know, we're not limited now to geographical region or area. So invite friends, family, people that you think would benefit from this philosophy, from this spiritual community to join us. And send the link to our Sunday service if they can't come right out on real time on Sunday morning. But reach out and please encourage people that you think could benefit from our philosophy, which is pretty much everybody, to join us and to participate with us and get to know us. We would love that kind of expansion as well. And financially, as Rob said, we want to be able to get back in person. And so we know that sacred giving is a spiritual practice. And as we give, it's returned. I invite you to give to One Heart, One Mind as a source of spiritual nourishment. Hopefully it is for you, or you wouldn't be here. And pretty much that's it. The practitioners are available, and I know that it's a challenge because we are virtual now, basically. Well, we are. We haven't met in person in over a year, but there are practitioners available to you that are ready and willing to hold the good for you. And if you butt up against something that you really need some support for, go to the website. You can find contact information there. On my weekly e-newsletter, I always send out all the information of all of our practitioners that are available to you. Give me a call. You know, if we're not available right at that moment, we will set a time when we can support you. But please reach out, and remember that even though we're virtual, we are there for you, and we want to support you through whatever you're going through. So I think that's about all I really wanted to say. Like I said, since I forgot my notes, I'm going to be really brief.
Michelle?
Yes,
Could I add something about the practitioners?
please do.
I know that, you know, when a practitioner is doing a session, often either the practitioner or the person who's having the session, or both, would like to see the other person. And speaking for Maureen and myself, we both have iPhones, and anyone who has an iPhone and wants to have a practitioner session, we can do it on FaceTime so that we can actually see each other and talk to each other at the same time.
Yep.
Or even if you have an Android, you can do Duo, which is, I think, a Google app that my daughter has an Android, and I downloaded Duo onto my iPhone, and I can video chat with her. So there are other ways. We can always make that happen. Thank you for bringing that up.
And you know, speaking for myself at least, I can set up a Zoom meeting as well with just two people, so that we can do that.
Yeah, or anyone that really wants to do it can use our One Heart, One Mind Zoom account as well. So yeah, we can do that for sure. Thank you for adding that. Does anybody, this is the time when we're just going to open up to questions. Anybody has any comments, questions? I want to again welcome Relaine Clark and Yvonne Carpenter to our Board of Trustees. Really appreciate your willingness to be in service in that way. Thank you for that. So does anybody have any questions that they'd like to, or comments even, that they'd like to throw out at this time? Okay, crickets. I guess no one has anything to add. Oh, and so I believe that it's Relaine. I put you down as doing the benediction. I hope that's okay. I don't think I asked you.
That's fine. No problem. All right, so let's just all hold each other in a knowingness that One Heart, One Mind Center is already expanding, and we've seen that already this year. And that there's tremendous gifts for us to give and receive as we expand and support and love each other. And so I know that all these ideas and plans and thoughts are now in fruition. They're moving forward with us all together, an expansion and opening and allowing and just being the best and most wonderful center that we can be. And so it is an individual and a collective energy that rises up and brings new people to our center, keeps all those that have been coming, and widens our circle to fulfill all the spiritual needs for each and every one of us. And as one really terrific group of people and a collective energy of highest and best for all. I release and I know this is true, and I simply say, and so it is.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Verlaine.
I now declare the meeting closed.
Thank you, Leslie. Your last official act as president.
I just want to say that I have served a total of 38 years on all the different church boards that I've been on, and on this one since 1997 when I came aboard. So I think I've shared my time, talent, and treasure, and made the decision that it was time to let go and move on, and for the board to have new ideas and new blood. And it has been an absolute joy to be able to serve on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie.
I say,
Thank you, Leslie.
Jim would just like to echo that and say, even though I'm leaving the board, I'm still going to do all the other things I do at the center because I like doing it, and so I'm going to continue as long as I can. And I apologize, but my computer crashed again this morning, which is the final reminder that it's time to get a new hard drive in my computer. I'm going to solid state next week.
All right.
Question. No one mentioned what the new people, the positions, or who would be the new president.
Usually we decide that the first board meeting after the election, but we have a pretty good idea. We'll let you know next week or next month. More to come. Anybody else have anything else they want to add? All right. Well, thank you so much for sticking around for the meeting. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you individually. I just love you all. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Richard. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.